I underwent surgery, and my 4 children promised, "We will take turns staying with you, Mom." Day 1. No one. Day 2. No one. Day 7. The nurse asked me if I had any family. On day 15, I was discharged, and I ordered a rideshare. When I got home, I woke up with a dry throat and a pain slicing through my abdomen as if I had been split in two. The hospital lights had been too white, too cold. I had moved my head, searching for a hand to hold. A familiar voice to tell me everything had gone well. Nothing. Just the constant beeping of machines and the squeak of rubber soles against the linoleum floor. A nurse walked in, checking papers without looking at me. "How are you feeling, Mrs. Eleanor?" I wanted to answer, but the words drowned when I remembered the last image before entering the operating room. My 4 children, all standing around my gurney, with serious expressions and promises that sounded like oaths. "Don't worry, Mom. We're going to take turns staying with you." Mason, my eldest, had put his hand on mine. "You won't be alone for a single day, I promise." Jason nodded. Sarah even had tears in her eyes, and Tyler, my 33-year-old baby, kissed my forehead saying, "Everything is going to be fine, Mommy." But upon opening my eyes after surgery, I only found white sheets and silence. If this story is stirring something inside you, subscribe to the channel for more tales that will make you reflect on family and dignity. The first day, I thought they were running late, that Chicago traffic had trapped them, that some emergency held them back. I checked my phone every 5 minutes. Nothing. Not a single call. Just cold messages in the family group chat. "Sorry, Mom. Something came up at work. Apologies. The kids are sick. I can't make it today. Maybe tomorrow." By the second day, the physical pain mixed with another kind of pain. The kind that tightens your chest and makes you doubt your own worth. Hadn't I been enough of a mother? Hadn't I raised these children well, for whom I sacrificed every dream of my own? 23 years raising 4 kids alone after their father died in that factory accident. 23 years without a vacation, without rest, without a moment for myself. And there I was, fresh out of a complicated gallbladder surgery, staring at the ceiling of a public hospital while they went on with their lives as if I didn't exist. On the 3rd day, I stopped checking the phone so frequently. On the 4th day, I stopped waiting. On the 5th day, I started walking the hospital hallways alone, dragging my IV pole, biting my lip so I wouldn't cry in front of the other patients who did have family by their side. On the 7th day, Nurse Lucy, a young woman with kind eyes, sat on the edge of my bed with a worried expression. "Mrs. Eleanor, do you have family?" The question hit me like a bucket of ice water. "I have 4 children," I replied, and my own voice sounded hollow, as if coming from very far away. She didn't say anything else, but her look of pity told me everything. In that moment, I understood that to the rest of the world, I was an abandoned old woman, just another one of those sad stories people comment on with pity and then forget. The following days dragged on between medical checkups, medications, and that emptiness that grows when you realize no one is coming. None of my children answered my calls. The messages were left unread. The wound on my abdomen was healing slowly, but something inside me was breaking faster than any doctor could repair. On day 15, the doctor discharged me. "You need rest at home, ma'am, and someone to look after you for at least 2 more weeks." I nodded as if I had someone waiting for me, as if I weren't completely alone. I walked out of the hospital with a plastic bag containing my belongings and a prescription for painkillers. The midday sun hit my face, and for a moment, I didn't know what to do. I took out my phone with shaking hands and opened the Uber app. My fingers trembled as I typed in my address. The driver was an older gentleman who asked no questions. Better that way. I wouldn't have been able to explain why a 67-year-old woman, fresh out of surgery, was calling a taxi instead of having her family pick her up. During the ride home, I looked out the window at the suburban streets I knew by heart. The same sidewalks where I taught my children to walk. The same corners where we waited for the school bus. Everything seemed different now, as if the city itself knew that something in me had changed forever. When the car stopped in front of my house, that 2-story red brick bungalow I bought with my husband's life insurance money, I felt a chill. The front door was ajar. I got out of the car slowly, in pain, confused. I had left everything locked tight before going to the hospital. I was always careful about that. I pushed the door open with a racing heart, and what I saw upon entering took away what little breath I had left. What did Eleanor find in her own home? The answer will change everything she thought she knew about her children. The living room was a mess, not like when you leave things out of place by accident, but like when someone has searched for something in a hurry and without care. The sofa cushions were crooked, the drawers of the antique cabinet were open, papers scattered on the floor. I walked slowly. Every step was a stab in my abdomen, every breath an effort. "Hello?" My voice sounded ridiculous in my own house. No one answered. I moved toward the dining room, and that was where I noticed it, the empty space against the wall. The mahogany china cabinet was gone. That cabinet had belonged to my grandmother Margaret, had survived the Great Depression, had crossed 3 generations of my family. My legs almost gave out. I had to hold on to the doorframe to keep from falling. It couldn't be real. Someone had broken in to rob me while I was agonizing in a hospital. I climbed the stairs, clinging to the banister, ignoring the pain screaming at me to stop. I needed to check my bedroom. I needed to know if they had also taken the only thing that truly mattered. I pushed open my bedroom door, and the world stopped. My jewelry box was open on the bed. The few pieces of jewelry I had were there. The costume earrings, a fake pearl necklace, a worthless bracelet. But something was missing. I plunged my trembling hands in, rummaging through every compartment. Though I already knew the truth, my late husband's gold ring was gone. It wasn't an expensive ring to other people, but to me, it was worth more than the entire house combined. It was the ring that belonged to Arthur's grandfather, passed from father to son for 80 years. The one my husband put on my finger the day we celebrated our 15th anniversary, telling me, "This is the only thing of value I have, and I want it to be yours." I had promised him on his deathbed, "I will take care of it like I took care of you, my love." And now it wasn't there. I sat on the bed without strength. My vision blurred. That was when I saw it. A folded piece of paper on my dresser, taped to the mirror. I took it with hands that no longer responded to me and unfolded it. The handwriting was Mason's. "Mom, we sold a few things to cover expenses. Don't be mad. They were just old objects you didn't use anymore. The money was needed more. We'll talk when you recover." I read the note 3 times. 4. 5. As if the words were going to change meaning. As if it were a nightmare from which I was about to wake up. Expenses. Old objects. My family heritage was just old objects to them. My grandmother's memories, the last piece of my husband, all reduced to sellable merchandise to solve their expenses. I looked in the mirror and almost didn't recognize the woman looking back at me. Her face was gaunt, deep circles under her eyes, her gray hair completely disheveled. But the worst wasn't my physical appearance. The worst was the emptiness in my eyes. The expression of someone who has just understood she has been betrayed by the people she loved most in the world. I grabbed my phone and dialed Mason with shaking fingers. He answered on the 3rd ring, his voice casual, almost cheerful. "Mom, are you out of the hospital yet? We were thinking of coming to see you tomorrow. Where is your father's ring?" I didn't shout. My voice came out cold, controlled, dangerous. There was a brief silence, then a sigh. "Mom, we needed money. Tiffany and I have debts. The ring got us $2,000. That's more useful than having it sitting there gathering dust." $2,000. You sold 80 years of family history for $2,000. And Grandma Margaret's china cabinet? Jason sold that one. I think he got about $1,200 for it. "Look, Mom, I know you're sensitive because of the operation, but it's not a big deal. It's just stuff. We are your family. We matter more than an old ring or a piece of furniture." I hung up. I couldn't keep listening. I let myself fall onto the bed, hugging my aching abdomen, and for the first time in 15 days, I cried. I cried for my husband, who had trusted I would protect his legacy. I cried for my grandmother, who had protected that cabinet during hard times. I cried for the foolish mother I had been, who raised 4 children without teaching them the value of things that cannot be bought with money. But above all, I cried because in that moment I understood something terrifying. If my children had been capable of selling my memories while I was vulnerable in a hospital, what else would they be capable of doing? The phone vibrated. A message from Jason in the family group chat. "Mom is out of the hospital. Can someone go check on her?" Sarah replied. I can't. I have 1,000 things to do. Tyler. Later. Maybe. Mason. She's a grown woman. She knows how to take care of herself. I read them all. Every word was a stab more precise than the surgeon's scalpel. I stayed there, sitting on my bed, in my ransacked house, surrounded by empty spaces where there used to be love and memories, and I knew that something inside me had just broken irreparably. But I also knew something else. I wasn't going to stay a victim crying over what was lost. If my children thought they could treat me like a nuisance they could take advantage of, they were about to meet a version of their mother they had never imagined. What Eleanor didn't know was that the theft of the ring was just the beginning. Her 4 children had a much darker plan, and she was about to discover it. I spent that first night at home without sleeping, staring at the ceiling, feeling every stitch of the surgical wound mix with a much worse pain. At dawn, I made a decision. I needed to understand what was really happening. My children hadn't turned into thieves overnight. Something bigger was going on. I got up slowly, made coffee the way my mother taught me. I needed something to bring me back to myself, and I sat down to mentally reconstruct each of my children. Not as the blind mother I had been, but as what I should have always been. A woman with her eyes wide open. Mason, my 42-year-old firstborn, the son in whom I had placed my hopes the most. I sold my wedding band to pay for his private college degree in business administration. He was the one who was going to succeed, the one who was going to lift us all up. And he did, supposedly. He had a stable job at a logistics company, a new car, a house in a nice subdivision, but something never added up. He always borrowed money. He always had an emergency. And he was married to Tiffany. Tiffany, that 38-year-old woman with perfect nails and designer bags I knew they couldn't afford, always with a plastic smile when she visited me, always asking questions that seemed innocent at the time. Mother-in-law? Is this house already in someone's name? Do you have a will? Oh, it's nothing, just for prevention. The signs had been there all along. I simply didn't want to see them. Jason was my second son, 39 years old, CPA, the obedient one, the quiet one, the one who never caused trouble, or so I thought. In reality, he was the invisible one, the one who let his wife Brittany make all the decisions. Brittany, a woman with a shrill voice and big ambitions who worked at a bank and lived obsessed with getting ahead. I had visited them 2 months ago and accidentally overheard an argument. We need that down payment for the condo, Jason. Your mom has that huge house all to herself. Can't you talk to her? My son's voice was barely a whisper. It's not that easy. Then you're useless, she had replied. Remembering that now made my stomach turn. My son was a coward, controlled by a woman who despised him. Then there was Sarah, my only daughter, 36 years old. The one who always felt I preferred her brothers. No matter how much I tried to prove otherwise, she carried that resentment like a stone around her neck. She had started a bakery business that never took off. The last time we spoke, 3 weeks ago, she asked to borrow $2,000 for new equipment. I told her I didn't have that amount. She hung up on me saying, "You were always stingy with me, but for Mason, everything." And finally, Tyler, my baby of 33 years. The one who never grew up because I never forced him to. The one who kept living off temp jobs. The one who changed girlfriends every 6 months. The one who had started 3 degrees without finishing any. A month ago, he came to ask for $1,000 for a medical emergency. I gave him $700 from my savings, the only thing I had for my own emergencies. 2 days later, I saw him on Facebook, at a casino in Indiana. It wasn't a medical emergency. It was a gambling debt. They all lied. They all needed money. They were all desperate. And I had something they all wanted. A house in an area that had appreciated incredibly in recent years. A real estate agent had contacted me 6 months ago, offering $450,000 for the property. I didn't even consider selling it. This was my house, the only place that was mine. But my children knew the value. Of course they knew. I finished my coffee feeling how the puzzle pieces fit together with painful clarity. The casual visits in recent months, the questions about important documents, Mason asking where I kept the deeds, Jason offering to help me organize my papers, Sarah saying that at my age I should plan things in case something happened to me, Tyler asking if I had a will made. These weren't visits from worried children. They were reconnaissance missions. They were planning something, all 4 of them, and I had been too naive or too afraid of loneliness to see it. I grabbed my phone and checked the family chat. There was a new message from Tiffany, addressed to everyone. Family, I think we should all meet to talk about Mother Eleanor. I'm worried about her living alone after the operation. How about this Sunday at my house? The other 3 replied fast. Too fast. Jason. Perfect. Sarah. I'll be there. Tyler. Yeah, we need to talk. They hadn't even asked me. They were organizing a meeting about my life, about my future, and I was barely an agenda item. I felt something new growing inside me. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't pain. It was something more dangerous, something colder. It was absolute clarity mixed with a silent rage that had been dormant for years. I stood up, ignoring the pain from the wound. I walked to my bedroom, and from the back of my closet, I pulled out an old shoebox. Inside was the wrinkled business card of Mr. Harrison, the lawyer who helped me with Arthur's will 20 years ago. A serious man, the kind that doesn't exist anymore, who never overcharged me and always treated me with respect. It was time to make a call, because if my 4 children wanted to play dirty, they were going to discover that their mother wasn't the helpless old woman they thought. I still had claws, and I was ready to use them, but Eleanor didn't know the worst of it. Her children didn't just want her house. They had a legal plan to take it from her, even while she was still alive. Sunday arrived like a sentencing, inevitable and heavy. I dressed in my ivory linen blouse and gray trousers, the most dignified clothes I had. I combed my hair with care. I put on the silver earrings Arthur gave me for our 10th anniversary. If they were going to try to make me feel like a burden, at least I wouldn't look like one. Jason picked me up. During the whole ride to Mason's house, he was quiet, nervous, drumming his fingers against the steering wheel. "Are you okay, son?" I asked him. "Yeah, Mom," he replied without looking at me. Just listen to what we have to say with an open mind." "Yeah?" That phrase froze my blood. We arrived at Mason's house in the suburbs, a nice 2-story house that had always seemed too big for just 2 people. Tiffany opened the door with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Mother-in-law, so good to see you recovered. Come in, come in." In the living room, everyone was already there. Sarah on the armchair, checking her phone. Tyler leaning against the wall, biting his nails. Mason standing by the window, arms crossed, wearing that serious expression he used when he was going to say something important. Tiffany guided me to the main sofa as if I were a guest of honor, or as if I were the defendant in a trial. "Do you want coffee? Iced tea?" offered Tiffany with that fake sweetness that was already making my stomach turn. "I'm fine, thanks." An awkward silence fell. The 4 of them looked at each other as if waiting for someone else to start. Finally, Mason cleared his throat. "Mom, we asked you to come because we're worried about you." I clenched my hands in my lap. "Worried?" "Yes," Sarah intervened without looking up from her phone. "You live alone in that huge house. You're not young anymore. The surgery showed that anything can happen at any moment." "I could have died in that surgery," I said with a calm voice, "and none of you were there." The silence became dense. Jason lowered his gaze. Tyler stopped biting his nails. Mason clenched his jaw. "Precisely because of that. We are here," Tiffany said, sitting next to me and taking my hand with her perfectly manicured ones. "Mrs. Miller, we couldn't be there because, honestly, we all have very busy lives. Jobs, children, responsibilities. It's not that we don't love you, it's that we simply can't be on standby all the time." Her words sounded reasonable, but there was poison underneath. "So, what do you propose?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Mason approached, taking some papers out of a folder on the coffee table. "We've been investigating options. We think it's best if you sign a power of attorney." "A power of attorney?" I repeated. "Just for emergencies," Jason rushed to say, "in case something happens to you and you can't make decisions. That way, we can help you with medical paperwork, payments, all that." "It's very common, mother-in-law," added Tiffany. "All older people do it. My mom already did it with my sisters. It's safer for everyone." I took the papers. They were legal documents, full of technical words I barely understood. But I managed to read a few phrases: broad and sufficient power, asset administration, authority to sell properties. This says you could sell my house, I pointed out. Only in an extreme case, Mason said quickly. If you need to go into a private hospital or a quality nursing home, those things cost money. The house is your biggest asset. We would have to be able to sell it to take good care of you. A nursing home? The word came out as a whisper. Not now. Sarah intervened for the first time with something resembling impatience. But eventually, Mom, you're going to need specialized care. You already saw that none of us can be with you all the time. I felt the walls closing in. It was a perfectly designed trap. They were presenting a reasonable solution to a problem they themselves had created with their absence. And if I sign this, I said slowly, then would you come visit me? Then would I have my family back? Tyler finally spoke, with a soft, almost childish voice. Of course, Mommy. It's just that right now everything is very complicated. But if you are legally protected, we'll all feel calmer. I looked at my youngest son, the boy I breastfed, nursed through fevers, held through every nightmare. And I saw a stranger lying to me, as easily as breathing. Besides, added Tiffany, handing me a pen, if you sign today, Mason and I promise we'll take turns visiting you every week, and I'm sure the others will too. Right, family? Everyone nodded, like vultures waiting for the prey to finally give up. I took the pen. I saw how everyone's eyes shone with anticipation. Mason even smiled. I brought the pen close to the paper. And then I remembered something. A rainy afternoon, many years ago, Arthur was sick. We already knew he had few months left. He took my hand and said, Eleanor, when I'm gone, our children are going to want you to make quick decisions. They're going to pressure you. Please, promise me something. Never let anyone take away your dignity. This house is yours. Your life is yours. Don't let anyone make you feel like a burden. I dropped the pen. I need to think about it, I said, standing up. These are important legal documents. I want my lawyer to review them first. The atmosphere changed instantly. The mask of concern cracked. Your lawyer? Mason asked, with an irritated tone. Mom, this is between family. You don't need a lawyer. Any sensible person reviews legal documents before signing, I replied calmly. Or isn't that what you taught me when you studied business, Mason? Sarah stood up. This is ridiculous. We're offering you help, and you come at us with mistrust. It's not mistrust, I lied. I just want to be sure of what I'm signing. Tiffany changed strategy. Tears appeared out of nowhere. Mrs. Miller, don't you trust us? We are your family. How can you think we would hurt you? I stared at her. I trusted you would be with me at the hospital. None of you came. The blow hit the mark. Everyone looked down. Then there's nothing more to talk about for today, I said, walking toward the door. Jason, will you drive me home, or should I call a taxi? The ride back was tense and silent. When we arrived, Jason finally spoke. Mom, honestly, we just want to help. I looked him in the eye. Jason, if you really wanted to help, you would have been at the hospital with me. You wouldn't have sold your great-grandmother's china cabinet for $1,200. His face went pale. He didn't say anything else. I went into my house, locked the deadbolt, and let myself fall onto the sofa. I had won this battle, but the war was just beginning, and now my children knew I wouldn't be so easy to manipulate. What I didn't know was that this would make them more dangerous. Eleanor had just rejected their trap. Now her children would have to resort to an even darker plan, one she would discover in the most painful way possible. Monday morning, I called Mr. Harrison. His secretary told me he could see me that very afternoon. It's urgent, I told her, and it was. I felt time slipping through my fingers like sand. I spent the morning checking every corner of my house, looking for more things that might have disappeared. I found empty spaces I hadn't noticed before. 2 silver figurines Arthur collected were missing, an antique wall clock that belonged to my father, even a lace shawl my mother embroidered by hand. These weren't thefts by strangers. They were family lootings, every piece chosen for its resale value. At 4 in the afternoon, I took a taxi to Mr. Harrison's office in downtown Chicago. His office was in an old building on LaSalle Street, with marble floors and tall windows that let in the afternoon light. Everything in that place breathed permanence and trust. Mr. Harrison was 72, with completely white hair and thick-rimmed glasses that gave him the look of a wise owl. He stood to greet me, and I noticed the genuine concern in his eyes when he saw my state. "Mrs. Eleanor, please sit down. You look tired. I just got out of the hospital," I explained as I settled into the leather chair across from his desk. "Gallbladder surgery. But I didn't come to talk about that." I told him everything. The abandonment, the theft of my belongings, Sunday's meeting, the power of attorney documents. While I spoke, Mr. Harrison took notes with a fountain pen, his expression becoming increasingly serious. When I finished, he took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Mrs. Eleanor, what you're telling me is more serious than you imagine. Did you bring the documents they wanted you to sign?" I took them out of my bag. He read them carefully, page by page, and with every line, his frown deepened. "This isn't a simple power of attorney for medical emergencies," he said finally. "This is an extremely broad, durable power of attorney. If you had signed, your children would have total control over all your assets. They could sell your house without your consent, drain your bank accounts, even commit you to an institution against your will." I felt the air escape my lungs. "Can they do that?" "With this document, yes. And the worst part is, it's drafted to look harmless, but the technical details are devastating." He paused. "Mrs. Eleanor, I have to tell you something else, and it won't be easy to hear." My heart raced. "What is it?" Mr. Harrison opened a drawer in his desk and pulled out a file. "2 months ago, your son Mason came to this office. He didn't recognize me because the person who attended him was my partner, Miss Roberts. He came to make inquiries about living inheritances, about how an elderly person could transfer properties to their children, about the process to declare someone legally incompetent." The world tilted beneath my feet. Incompetent? Yes. He specifically asked what was needed for a judge to declare a person incapable of managing their own assets due to mental or physical health issues. Mr. Harrison opened the file and showed me the notes. Miss Roberts explained the process. Medical evaluations are needed, statements from family members, proof that the person cannot make decisions for themselves. "But I am perfectly fine in the head," I said, though my voice trembled. "That doesn't matter if they get doctors to say otherwise. And believe me, with money and the right connections, it's not difficult." He leaned forward. "Mrs. Eleanor, your children don't just want your house. They are planning to take away your complete autonomy." I sat in silence, processing. Everything fit with terrifying clarity. Sunday's meeting wasn't just to convince me to sign. It was the first step of a bigger plan. If I didn't sign voluntarily, they would look for another way. "What else did you find out?" I asked, because something in Mr. Harrison's expression told me there was more. He hesitated, but finally continued. "I made some calls. I have contacts at banks, at courthouses. It's not strictly by the book, but you are my client, and I worry about your well-being." He pulled out more papers. "Your son Tyler has debts registered with the credit bureaus for $180,000, mainly with online gambling sites and personal loans with extremely high interest rates. $180,000. My youngest son was in over his head. Sarah," Mr. Harrison continued, "has a bakery business that is technically bankrupt. She owes 3 months of rent on her storefront, has unpaid suppliers, and a pending audit from the IRS. We're talking about some $250,000 in total debt." Every figure was a stab. Jason and his wife Brittany applied for a mortgage a month ago to buy a condo in a new development. The bank approved it on the condition they put down a down payment of $100,000. They don't have it. They already committed to the seller, and if they don't pay in 3 weeks, they lose a deposit of $20,000 they already put down. "And Mason," I said with a hollow voice, knowing the worst would come at the end. Mr. Harrison nodded gravely. "Mason and Tiffany have credit card debt of nearly $150,000, late payments on their car. And 6 months ago, they took a loan from a predatory lender. They owe $60,000, and the interest is compounding daily." I did the mental math. Between the 4 of them, my children owed more than $500,000. And my house was worth $450,000. They all need money urgently, I murmured. They are all desperate. Exactly. And you are their solution. Mr. Harrison closed the file. Mrs. Eleanor, I understand they are your children. I understand this must hurt in a way I cannot imagine, but you need to protect yourself. Now, what do you recommend? First, change your will immediately. Second, update the beneficiaries on any bank account or insurance policy. Third, consider selling the house and moving to a place where they won't find you easily. I am not going to run away from my own children, I said with surprising firmness. This is my house. I bought it with Arthur's insurance money. I kept it working as a seamstress for years. It is mine. Then we have to be smarter than them. Mr. Harrison leaned back in his chair, thoughtful. Is there anyone you trust? Someone outside your children? I thought of my niece Emily, the daughter of my sister Magdalena, who died of cancer 7 years ago. Emily had been like a daughter to me. She worked as a nurse. She was a single mother of 2 children, and she had always treated me with respect and affection. She visited me every month without fail. She called me every week just to see how I was. My niece Emily, I said. Do you trust her completely? With your life? Yes. Good. Then we're going to do the following. We're going to create a new will where Emily is the primary beneficiary of the house. We're also going to establish a trust with clear instructions. If anyone tries to declare you incompetent or institutionalize you against your will, automatically everything passes to Emily and a charity of your choice. A charity? For abandoned elderly people? It will be your legacy, Mrs. Eleanor. And it will be the best revenge that your children know their greed not only cost them their inheritance, but helped the very people they tried to create. For the first time in days, something resembling a smile touched my lips. I like that idea. There is something else, Mr. Harrison added. Your children are going to try something soon. They are desperate. We need to be prepared. We need evidence of their true intentions. How? By letting them believe they have the upper hand. He took off his glasses and looked at me intently. Mrs. Eleanor, would you be willing to act? What Mr. Harrison proposed to Eleanor was risky, but it was the only way to discover how far her own children were willing to go. I left Mr. Harrison's office with a plan, but also with a weight in my chest that barely let me breathe. I had to act as if nothing had changed, as if I were still the naive and trusting mother as always. But inside, something had hardened, something that would never be soft again. The next few days were strange. My children called me more often, but not to ask how I was. It was to drop by, to help me with things around the house, to keep subtly pressuring me about the documents. I received them with tea and cookies, pretending I was considering their proposal, telling them I needed more time. Friday afternoon, I was in the kitchen making rice when I heard my phone vibrate on the table. It was an incoming call from Mason. I didn't answer in time, but he didn't hang up. The call was still active. Then I heard voices. Many voices. My son had pocket-dialed me, or the phone had activated in his pocket. Whatever it was, now I could hear everything. You're being stubborn. It was Mason's voice, clear and frustrated. It's been 2 weeks since the meeting, and she keeps saying her lawyer has to review the papers. Your mom was never totally stupid, Tiffany replied. That's why we have to change strategy. I froze with the phone pressed to my ear. They were on speakerphone. I could hear the echo of an enclosed space, probably Mason's car. And what do you propose? It was Jason's voice. What I told you last week, answered another female voice. Brittany, if she doesn't sign the easy way, we declare her incompetent. We get a psychiatrist to certify she has senile dementia, that she can't live alone. And how are we going to do that? Asked Tyler. Mom is fine in the head. It doesn't matter, said Mason with a cold, practical tone. Jason, your friend Octavio Dr. Peters is a psychiatrist, right? The one who owes you a favor? Yeah, but so use him. Have him go evaluate Mom. Have him say in his report that she has severe cognitive deterioration, that she's a danger to herself. With that, and the signatures of all 4 of us, a judge signs the incapacity order in a week. My hand started shaking so much I almost dropped the phone. And then what? Asked Sarah. For the first time her voice sounded unsure. Are we really going to put her in a nursing home? It's not a nursing home. It's a residence, corrected Tiffany with a patient tone, as if speaking to a child. There are some very decent ones for $3,000 a month. We put her there, sell the house, pay our debts, and leave her a fund so she's taken care of. Everyone wins. She's going to hate us, murmured Sarah. She already hates us, Tyler blurted out with a bitter laugh. Since she realized about the ring and the cabinet. Did you see how she looked at us on Sunday? Like we were trash. Well, we'll fix it ourselves, said Mason. Look, that house belongs more to us than to her. We grew up there. We have families, children, futures. She already lived her life. She already had her time. Now it's our turn. The words hit me like fists. She already lived her life, as if I were a finished transaction, a complete cycle that served no purpose anymore. Besides, continued Tiffany, let's be honest. She lives in that huge house completely alone. It's a waste. We'll give that money better use. Mason and I can get out of debt and finally invest in the business we want. Jason and Brittany buy their condo. Sarah saves her bakery. And Tyler? I can pay what I owe and start from scratch, finished my youngest son with a pleading voice, as if asking for approval. Exactly, said Mason. It's a solution where everyone wins. Mom will be taken care of in a professional place, and we can finally live in peace. And if she resists? Asked Jason. She's stubborn when she sets her mind to it. There was a long pause. Then Mason's voice sounded lower, more sinister. If she resists too much, there are medications that can keep her calm, quiet. The psychiatrist can prescribe something for her anxiety, keep her more manageable. Are you talking about drugging her? Sarah's voice rose in pitch. I'm talking about medicating her appropriately for her condition, replied Mason with a professional tone, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. It's what's done in these cases. Silence. A silence where none of my other 3 children objected. None said that was wrong. None defended their mother. When do we do it? Asked Brittany. Next week, replied Tiffany. Dr. Peters goes Wednesday to evaluate her. By Friday we have the report. The following Monday we start the legal process. In 2 weeks, maximum 3, the house is for sale. And Mom is committed, added Tyler with a flat, empty voice. Where she'll be better taken care of than with us, insisted Mason. Believe me, it's best for everyone, including her, even if she doesn't understand it now. The call cut off. I stood in my kitchen, phone in hand, rice burning on the stove, and the world crumbling around me. My legs gave way. I let myself fall into a chair, and for the first time in my life, I felt something worse than pain. I felt absolute emptiness. These were the children I had raised alone after being widowed at 44. The babies I nursed, cared for in every sickness, defended from every injustice. Mason, for whom I sold my wedding band to pay for college. Jason, for whom I worked double shifts sewing uniforms to pay for private school. Sarah, whom I consoled in every heartbreak, in every failure. Tyler, my baby, whom I kept protecting even when everyone told me I was spoiling him. I had given them everything, everything. My years, my health, my dreams. Every dollar I earned was for them. Every sacrifice had their names on it. And this is how they paid me. They didn't just want my house. They wanted to lock me up, drug me, turn me into a manageable nuisance while they divided the spoils of my life. I got up slowly and turned off the stove. The rice was black, ruined, like everything else. I went to my room and sat in front of the vanity mirror. The woman looking at me was 67. Scars from recent surgery, wrinkles of worry and pain. But she also had something new in her eyes, something hard, something dangerous. I grabbed my phone and found the recording of the call. There it was. 17 minutes of perfectly clear audio. The voices of my 4 children planning my destruction. I felt something strange grow in my chest. It wasn't sadness. I had run out of tears. This was different. It was absolute clarity mixed with steely determination. I dialed Mr. Harrison. He answered on the second ring. Missus. Eleanor, are you okay? No, I replied with a surprisingly calm voice. But I'm going to be. I need you to come to my house tomorrow morning. I have a recording you need to hear, and I need us to prepare everything we discussed. We can't wait anymore. What happened? My children just showed me who they really are, and I am going to show them who I am. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room, in the dark, with the recording on my phone and a mental clarity I hadn't had in years. My children had made a mistake. They thought I was weak. They thought my mother's love would make me blind and obedient. But they forgot something important. Before being their mother, I was Eleanor Miller, the woman who survived poverty, the one who raised 4 children alone, the one who turned pain into strength over and over again. If they wanted war, they would have war. But it would be on my terms. And this time, I would win. Eleanor was no longer the victim. Now she was the strategist, and her plan to reclaim her dignity was just beginning. Mr. Harrison arrived at my house at 8 o'clock Saturday morning. He brought with him Miss Roberts, his partner, a woman in her 50s with an intelligent gaze and direct manners that I liked immediately. I served them coffee and pastries I had bought early at Joe's bakery. I needed to maintain appearances of normality. Then I put the phone on the table and played the recording. I watched their expressions change as they listened. Mr. Harrison clenched his jaw. Miss Roberts took notes rapidly, underlining specific phrases. When it finished, the silence in my kitchen was as thick as fog. "This is pure gold," said Miss Roberts finally. "It is direct evidence of conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted elder abuse, and we could even argue attempted kidnapping. With this recording, any legal attempt by them is destroyed. But I don't want to destroy them," I said, and both lawyers looked at me surprised. "I want them to learn. I want to recover my dignity, and I want them to understand what they did, but I don't want to see them in jail." Mr. Harrison nodded slowly. "Then, we need a subtler plan, more emotionally devastating than legally." "Exactly," I said. "I want them to feel what I felt. I want them to lose what they thought was won, and I want it to be by their own actions, not mine." During the next 2 hours, we designed the plan. It was risky. It required me to act convincingly. But it was perfect. It would make my children reveal their true nature before witnesses, before authorities, before themselves. "Are you sure you can do this?" asked Miss Roberts. "It's going to require you to act as if you were losing your memory, as if you were confused. It will be painful to fake weakness." "I've pretended to be fine for weeks while bleeding inside," I replied. "I can pretend to be bad for a few days if that gives me back my life." We signed the new documents that same day. The will was modified. The house would go to Emily, and a substantial portion to a foundation we would create for abandoned seniors. The beneficiaries of my bank accounts changed. Everything was protected, legally armored. "Now comes the hard part," said Mr. Harrison. "You have to call your children and act as if something is wrong. You have to plant the seed that their plan is working." That afternoon I called Mason. I let the phone ring several times before answering, as if I struggled to find it. "Hello?" I said with a slightly confused voice. "Mom? It's Mason." "Mason? Ah, yes, son. How are you?" I paused. "Sorry. Had we already spoken today?" Silence on the other end. I could feel his mental gears turning. "No, Mom. We haven't spoken. Are you okay?" Yes, I'm fine. It's just that. I don't remember if I took my medicine this morning. I left the pills somewhere, and I can't find them." I let out a nervous laugh. "The truth is, lately I forget a lot of things. The other day, I didn't remember where I kept the house deeds." How silly, right? Another silence. This one longer, more calculating. "The deeds? For the house?" "Yeah, those. I needed them for... Well, I don't even remember what I needed them for." I sighed. "Oh, son, I think you're right. Maybe I do need help with these things. Living alone is being harder than I thought." "Mom." Mason's voice changed. It became softer, more interested. "Do you want me to come see you? I can stop by tomorrow, help you look for your papers, organize your meds. Is tomorrow Sunday?" I asked as if I didn't know. "Yes, Mom. Tomorrow is Sunday." "Ah, well, yes. Come if you want. I'm going to make pot roast." I paused. Or was it tomorrow that I was going to make pot roast? I don't remember. "Don't worry, Mom. I'll be there at 11. Rest." I hung up and breathed deep. The trap was set. The next day, all 4 arrived. Not just Mason, everyone. Clearly, he had called his siblings to tell them about my confusion. They came with expressions of concern that would have been convincing if I hadn't heard that recording. I received them in my bathrobe, hair uncombed, shuffling my slippers a bit. I had left papers scattered on the table, unwashed coffee mugs in different parts of the living room. Everything to create the image of mental disorder. "Children, what a surprise that you all came," I said with a vague smile. "Is it a special day? Is it my birthday?" "No, Mom," said Sarah, sitting next to me. "Your birthday is in March. We're in November." "Ah, right, November." I nodded, as if just remembering. "Did you eat?" "I made rice, but I think I burned it. Or was it yesterday that I burned it? I'm not sure." I saw them exchange looks of opportunity. "Mom!" Jason knelt in front of me. "Have you been taking your meds?" "I think so, though sometimes I forget. There are so many." I touched my forehead. "And then I don't know if I already took them, or if I just thought about taking them." Tyler got up and started walking around the house, looking at every corner furtively. I saw him open drawers, check papers. He was looking for the deeds. I let him look. He wouldn't find them. They were in a safe deposit box at the bank since the day before. "Mom." Tiffany sat on the other side, taking my hand. "We've been thinking, maybe it would be good if someone came to help you, or if you went to a place where you were better taken care of." "A place?" I looked at her with confused eyes. "What place?" "A residence," said Mason with a soft voice. "A nice place where there are nurses, where you don't have to worry about cooking or cleaning, where there's always someone if you need something." "Sounds expensive," I murmured. "Don't worry about that," he said quickly. "We would take care of it. We could sell the house, and with that money—" "Sell my house?" Suddenly my voice sounded clearer, more alert. I looked at everyone. "This is my house. Arthur and I bought it. You grew up here." "We know, Mom." Sarah squeezed my hand. "But it's too big for you alone. And with the money, you could be in a better place." I stayed quiet, looking at the floor. I let them think I was considering it. Then I said something I knew would tempt them to the limit. "Maybe you're right. I'm very tired, very confused." I looked up. "If you think it's for the best, I trust you. You are my children." The room practically vibrated with their emotion. "So would you sign the papers?" asked Mason, trying to sound casual. "The power of attorney we talked about?" "What papers?" I tilted my head. "The ones we showed you 2 weeks ago. For the power of attorney." "I don't remember that," I said softly. "But if you say it's important, I guess I can sign. You would never hurt me, right?" I saw the naked greed in their eyes. I saw how they looked at each other with expressions of triumph. "Never, Mom," lied Mason. "We only want what's best for you." "Then it's okay," I said with a tired voice. "But not today. I'm very tired today. Maybe another day." "Sure, Mom." Tiffany patted my hand. "Another day. Soon." When they left, I sat in the same spot for 20 minutes. Then I got up, combed my hair, washed my face, and called Mr. Harrison. "They took the bait," I told him. "Now we have to prepare the next phase." "Are you ready for what comes?" he asked. "More than ready," I replied. "I'm going to make my children face exactly who they are, and I'm going to do it in front of everyone who needs to see it." The metamorphosis was complete. Eleanor was no longer the devoted mother. Now she was Eleanor the strategist, and my next move would leave them all breathless. Eleanor had prepared the perfect stage, but for her plan to work, she needed her children to take the final step, and they would take it very soon. Wednesday arrived as planned. At 3 in the afternoon, the doorbell rang. It was Jason, accompanied by a thin man in his 50s with a white coat and a black briefcase. Dr. Peters, the psychiatrist friend who was going to certify my supposed dementia. What my children didn't know was that Mr. Harrison had made his own arrangements. In my living room, hidden behind a picture frame, was a tiny camera. In the vase by the entrance, a microphone. All perfectly legal because it was my house and I had given my consent. Miss Roberts was in her car outside, monitoring everything in real time. "Mom," Jason said with that fake smile that was already making me sick. "Look, I brought Dr. Peters. He's a friend of mine. He just wants to ask you a few questions to see how your health is." "A doctor?" I feigned confusion. "Am I sick?" "No, Mrs. Miller." Dr. Peters sat in front of me with notebook in hand. "It's just a routine evaluation. Your son is worried about you." During the next hour, The doctor asked me questions designed to make me seem incompetent. What day is it today? What year are we in? Can you tell me what you had for breakfast? Do you remember where you kept important documents? I answered with the perfect mix of confusion and lucidity. Sometimes I got it right. Sometimes I doubted. Sometimes I contradicted myself, enough to look deteriorating, but not so severe that it was obvious I was acting. Jason intervened strategically. Mom has forgotten to take her meds several times. The other day she left the stove on. She gets confused with dates constantly. All lies. All spoken with the conviction of someone who believes they are doing the right thing. Dr. Peters took notes. He nodded gravely. When finished, he told Jason in a low voice, but not low enough for me not to hear. It's clear there is significant cognitive decline. I'm going to recommend evaluation to determine if she can continue living independently. And the document? Asked Jason anxiously. The report? You'll have it by Friday. With this, and the signatures of all the siblings, the legal process will be fast. They left, leaving me resting. As soon as I locked the door, I breathed deep and called Mr. Harrison. We have it all recorded, he said, with satisfaction in his voice. This is conspiracy to commit fraud, documented. Dr. Peters could lose his license for this. Not yet, I told him. Let them get to the end. I want them to sink themselves. On Friday, as anticipated, Mason called me to organize an urgent family meeting for Sunday. It's important, Mom. We're going to talk about your future. His voice was poisoned, honey. My future? I asked with a small voice. Yes, Mom. So you're better taken care of. We love you. On Sunday, everyone arrived at 11 in the morning. But this time they didn't come alone. Mason brought a thick folder with documents. Tiffany brought brochures for residences for seniors. Everyone dressed formally, as if it were a special occasion. What they didn't know was that I had also invited a few others. I received them in the living room, sitting on my favorite sofa, in the same bathrobe and confused expression of previous days. Children! How nice that everyone came. Is it Christmas? No, Mom, said Sarah, sitting down. It's still November. Remember we talked about this. Mason opened his folder. Mom, we brought the papers you need to sign. It's for your protection. Jason explained that the doctor came to see you, right? A doctor? I blinked. I think so. I think someone came. Yes, Mom, Jason approached. And he says you need help, that you can't live alone anymore. So we're going to help you. We found a beautiful place. Tiffany put the brochures in front of me. Look, it has gardens, nurses, 24 hours, activities. You're going to be very well there. I took the brochures with trembling hands. They were from a cheap nursing home on the outskirts of the city. Nothing like the $3,000 a month they had mentioned in their conversation. This one cost $900. They weren't even going to spend enough to institutionalize me decently. Are you going to take me to live there? I asked with a breaking voice. It's for the best, said Tyler, unable to look me in the eye. You'll be taken care of there. And my house? We'll take care of the house. Mason put the documents in front of me. That's why you need to sign this. It's a power of attorney, so we can sell the house and manage the money to pay for your residence. But I want my house, I said, and let my voice shake. This is my house. I live here with Arthur. An uncomfortable silence fell. Sarah cleared her throat. Mom, Dad died 23 years ago. Died? I opened my eyes wide. When? Perfect. I had them right where I wanted them. I saw their expressions, a mix of fake pity and real impatience. They thought they had won. Mom, Mason put the pen in my hand. Sign here. We'll take care of everything. Trust us. I took the pen. I brought the paper close. I saw everyone holding their breath. And then the doorbell rang. Everyone tensed. Are you expecting someone, Mom? Asked Tiffany with barely contained annoyance. I don't know, I said with genuine confusion in this case. Was I expecting someone? Jason went to open the door, and his face went pale when he saw who was there. Mr. Harrison entered first with his leather briefcase and serious expression. Behind him came Miss Roberts, and behind her, my niece Emily, with tears in her eyes but jaw clenched. What is going on here? Asked Mr. Harrison, with a voice that rumbled in the room. And who are you? Mason stood up, his posture defensive. I am Harrison Miller, attorney for Mrs. Eleanor Miller, and this meeting is over. This is a family matter, said Tiffany. It has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with me when you are attempting to commit fraud against my client, replied Miss Roberts, taking out her own folder. We have documented every step of your plan to strip Mrs. Eleanor of her assets through deceit and falsification of medical documents. The color left the faces of my 4 children. I don't know what you're talking about, stuttered Mason. No? Mr. Harrison took out his phone. Maybe this will refresh your memory. And he played the recording. That call from last Friday where they planned everything. Declaring me incompetent, drugging me if necessary, selling my house, committing me to the cheapest asylum. Their own voices filled the room. Every word, every plan, every betrayal, in perfectly clear audio. I watched reality hit them. Jason slumped into a chair. Sarah covered her mouth. Tyler looked at the floor as if wishing it would swallow him. Tiffany and Brittany looked at each other in panic. And Mason, my eldest son, in whom I had trusted most, clenched his fists with impotent fury. That was a private conversation, he managed to say. That your mother heard? I replied. And my voice was no longer that of a confused old woman. It was clear, strong, firm. You pocket-dialed, Mason, and I heard every word of your plan to destroy me. I stood up slowly. I wasn't shuffling my feet anymore. I wasn't shaking anymore. I looked at each of them, one by one. You thought I was a stupid old woman, I continued. You thought you could manipulate me, rob me, lock me up. You thought my mother's love would make me blind. Mom, Jason tried to speak. No, my voice cracked like a whip. I am not your mom anymore. A mother is someone you respect, someone you take care of, someone you love. I was that for you, but you for me? You were thieves waiting for me to die? Emily approached and took my arm. Her presence was an anchor. Now you are going to hear what is going to happen, said Mr. Harrison. Mrs. Eleanor has modified her will. This house, along with a significant percentage of her assets, will go to her niece Emily and a foundation for abandoned elderly people. A foundation that will bear the name of her late husband, Arthur Miller. You can't do that, shouted Tiffany. We are her family. You stopped being family the day you abandoned her at the hospital, replied Miss Roberts coldly. But there is more. We have documented all your actions. The theft of the ring and the cabinet, the conspiracy with Dr. Peters, who, by the way, is already being investigated by the medical board, and the attempted fraud via false documents. We could press criminal charges, continued Mr. Harrison. But Mrs. Eleanor, in her infinite generosity, has decided not to. The 4 of them looked at me with a mix of relief and confusion. However, I added, there are conditions. The conditions Eleanor was about to impose would change everything, and her children would finally understand the real price of betrayal. The silence in my living room was so thick you could cut it with a knife. My 4 children looked at me as if seeing me for the first time, and perhaps it was true, because the woman standing before them was no longer the submissive mother they knew. Sit down, I ordered. It wasn't a suggestion, it was an order, and they obeyed like scared children. Emily remained standing by my side, her hand still on my arm. Mr. Harrison and Miss Roberts positioned themselves behind the sofa, silent witnesses to this family trial. I'm going to tell you exactly what is going to happen, I began with a calm but lethal voice. And you will listen to every word without interrupting. Understood? No one answered. I took it as a yes. First, your father's ring and my grandmother's cabinet. I took an envelope from my pocket. I opened it and let a stack of bills fall onto the table. Here are the $3,200 you got for selling the only things that had true sentimental value to me. Mr. Harrison tracked the sales and recovered the money from your accounts, added Miss Roberts. Mason opened his mouth to protest, but Mr. Harrison raised a hand. All legal. Mrs. Eleanor filed the corresponding reports. You sold stolen property. Technically, you could face charges, but I won't press them, I continued, because I'm not going to report you, not because you don't deserve it, but because I don't want my grandchildren growing up visiting their parents in jail. I saw how that mention of my grandchildren hit them. Sarah began to cry silently. Second, this house. I walked to the window and looked out at the street where I had played with them when they were children. This house that your father and I bought with his life insurance money. This house I kept by working until my fingers bled from so much sewing. This house where I raised the four of you. This house will no longer be yours. Mom, please, started Tyler. My will, I interrupted him, clearly states that upon my death, 60% of the value of this house will go to Emily, who has been more of a daughter to me in these last few years than any of you. The remaining 40% will go to the Arthur Miller Foundation for Abandoned Seniors. Mason stood up abruptly. That's unfair. We are your biological children. Sit down, Mason. My voice cut the air. Because I'm not finished yet. He sat down slowly, rage contorting his face. Besides that, I pulled another paper from my pocket. Mr. Harrison prepared a very interesting document. It's called a Living Intent Declaration. In it, I establish that if at any moment anyone tries to declare me incompetent without my consent, or institutionalize me against my will, or manage my assets without a duly substantiated court order, a clause automatically activates. Everything, absolutely everything, passes immediately to Emily and the foundation. You are cut out completely, without a dime, with nothing. Miss Roberts added, this document is notarized and on file with 3 different banking institutions. It is contestable only upon my death or with medical evidence from multiple independent specialists. Dr. Peters can no longer help you. His report became invalid when we documented his conspiracy. Jason had his head in his hands. Brittany was crying. Tiffany looked at Mason as if blaming him for everything. Sarah sobbed without consolation. Tyler looked like a lost child. Third, I continued, and my voice cracked slightly here because this part hurt even me. Your children, my grandchildren. I looked up and stared directly at them. Sebastian is 8, Valeria is 6, Jason's twins are 5, and Andrea, Sarah's daughter, is 4. Naming them cost me, because I did love them unconditionally. They are not to blame for what you did. So I have created an educational trust for each one. $20,000 per child that they will receive when they turn 18, exclusively for college education. I saw surprise on their faces. They didn't expect that. That money, I clarified, comes from my life savings, from the work you thought was worth nothing, and they will receive it directly, without passing through you. Not a single penny. Fourth, Mom, Sarah tried to speak through tears. No, I raised my hand. You had your chance to speak when you were planning to drug me, when you decided I had already lived enough. Now it's my turn. I walked back to the center of the room and faced them all. Fourth, Dr. Peters. We already filed a formal complaint with the medical board. His fake evaluation is being investigated. He will likely lose his license. And you, I looked specifically at Jason, are going to have to explain to your friend why you involved him in fraud. Jason paled even further. Fifth, the documents you brought today for me to sign. Mr. Harrison took them from the table. They were annulled the moment we played the recording. They are evidence of attempted fraud. We are keeping them in case you ever decide to try something similar. I paused, took a deep breath. What was coming was the hardest part. And sixth, you. I looked at them one by one. My firstborn who sold my past for $2,000. My second son who was too cowardly to defend his mother. My only daughter who confused my love with favoritism and turned resentment into revenge. My youngest son who never grew up and is now paying the price. I loved you with every fiber of my being, I said, and tears began to roll down my cheeks. I gave you everything. My youth, my health, my dreams. When your father died and I was left alone with 4 children under 19, I could have given up. I could have looked for someone to support me. But I didn't because you were my world. My voice broke, but I continued. I worked double shifts. I sold my wedding ring. I sewed until my fingers bled. I skipped meals so you could eat. I wore old clothes so you could have new uniforms. And when you grew up and formed your families, I kept giving. Money for down payments, for emergencies, for your businesses. I never said no when you needed something. Mason had tears in his eyes now. Everyone did. And when I finally needed you, when I was in that hospital facing a surgery that could have killed me, none of you showed up, not a single one. My voice rose in volume. You abandoned me in the most vulnerable moment of my life. And then, while I recovered alone, You broke into my house and robbed me. You sold the only tangible memories I had left of the people I loved. We're sorry, Sarah sobbed. Are you sorry? My laugh was bitter. Are you sorry you did it, or sorry I caught you? No one answered. The answer was clear on their ashamed faces. This is what is going to happen now, I said with regained firmness. You can continue being part of my life, or you can leave. But if you stay, it will be on my terms. No fake visits looking for opportunities, no questions about money or inheritances, no manipulations. I pulled the last document from my pocket. Mr. Harrison prepared an agreement. If you want to have any relationship with me from now on, you sign it. In it, you commit to respecting my decisions, not attempting to manipulate or control me, and accepting that my will and my assets are my business and no one else's. And if we don't sign? Asked Mason with a hoarse voice. I looked him straight in the eye. Then you never set foot in this house again. You never call me again. And when I die, you'll find out in the newspaper. The weight of those words fell on them like a tombstone. You have 1 week to decide, I said. Mr. Harrison will send you copies of the agreement. If you sign, we can try to rebuild something. It won't be the same. It will never be the same again. But maybe, with years of genuine effort on your part, we can have some kind of relationship. I approached the door and opened it. Now leave, all of you. I need to rest, and I need this house to feel like my home again, not a battlefield. One by one, they got up. Tiffany and Brittany left fast, without looking back. Tyler stopped in front of me, with tears rolling down his face. Mom, but he didn't find the words. He just lowered his head and left. Jason looked at me with red eyes. Forgive me. That's all I can say. He left. Sarah stopped and hugged me. I didn't return the hug. All my life I thought you didn't love me, she whispered. And now I understand you always loved me. It was me who didn't know how to see it. I released her gently. You have a week, Sarah. Mason was the last, my firstborn, the boy in whom I placed so many hopes. He stood in front of me with his pride destroyed. I thought I was doing the right thing, he said with a broken voice. I thought I was protecting you. No, Mason, I replied with infinite weariness. You thought you were protecting your inheritance. There is a huge difference. He left without saying more. I closed the door and leaned against it. The tears I had held back finally came out. Emily hugged me while I cried. You did good, Auntie, she whispered. It was the right thing. Why does doing the right thing hurt so much? I asked between sobs. Because real love always hurts when it's betrayed, she replied. But it also heals. You'll see. Mr. Harrison and Miss Roberts said goodbye shortly after, leaving me alone with Emily. We sat in the living room, in silence, while the afternoon turned into night. Eleanor had won the battle, but the true challenge was just beginning. Learning to live with the victory. 6 months later, I woke up in my house with the sun coming through my bedroom window. The surgery wound had healed completely, but the invisible scars took more time. Some mornings still hurt. I got up slowly, no longer from physical pain, but from habit. I made fresh coffee in the kitchen, which now felt bigger and quieter, but also more mine. While the aroma filled the space, I remembered what that first morning after the confrontation had been like. The emptiness, the feeling of having won a war but lost a family, except I hadn't lost it all. Emily came to visit me twice a week. Her children, my grandnephews of 7 and 9, filled the house with laughter on Sundays. They didn't carry the weight of betrayal or expectations. They only brought simple, honest love, without conditions. And then there were my own grandchildren. Of my 4 children, only Sarah signed the agreement. She did it 3 days after the deadline. She arrived alone one rainy afternoon with puffy eyes and the paper in her hands. I don't expect you to forgive me, she had said, but I want to try. I want Andrea Lilly to know the real you, not the grandmother I invented in my head out of my own resentment. And she was trying. She came every 2 weeks, always punctual, always respectful. She didn't ask for money, didn't mention the inheritance. She just brought Lily, and we drank tea while the girl played in the yard. The conversations were awkward at first, full of heavy silences, but slowly, very slowly, we were building something new, something honest. The other 3 didn't sign. Mason tried to negotiate. He sent messages saying the agreement was too harsh, that he needed fairer terms. Mr. Harrison replied that there was no negotiation possible. We didn't hear from him again. I found out through Sarah that he and Tiffany divorced 2 months after everything. Apparently, when it became clear there would be no inheritance to chase, Tiffany decided to look for better opportunities elsewhere. Jason sent a letter. A handwritten letter that arrived 4 weeks after the confrontation. He didn't ask for forgiveness directly, but explained how Brittany had manipulated him for years, how he had felt trapped between his wife and his mother, how he chose poorly. The letter ended saying, "I understand if you don't want to see me again. I just wanted you to know that I did love you, Mom. I just didn't know how to show it." He didn't sign the agreement, but he didn't ask for anything again either. We existed in a mutual limbo of distant respect. Tyler simply disappeared. Sarah told me he had fled to Nevada to escape his creditors. Every now and then, I heard news from third parties, that he was working in a restaurant, that he had met someone, that he was still gambling. It was like having a ghost son, present in my memory but absent from my life. And strangely, with time, that absence hurt less. I walked to my study, the room I had converted into the office of the foundation. On the desk were stacks of applications, thank you letters, photographs of seniors who were now receiving help thanks to the Arthur Miller Foundation. We had helped 17 people in these 6 months. Elderly people abandoned in hospitals without family. Grandparents evicted from their own homes by greedy children. Seniors who needed legal support to protect their assets. Every story was a mirror of mine, and every time we helped someone, I felt that my children's betrayal acquired a greater meaning. Their selfishness had sown seeds of protection for others. Emily managed the administrative side of the foundation with efficiency and heart. Mr. Harrison offered pro bono legal services 2 days a month. Miss Roberts gave free workshops on asset protection for seniors. I, with my first-hand experience, spoke with every person who arrived seeking help. I told them my story. I showed them that surviving was possible, that recovering dignity was possible. And for the first time in decades, I felt that my life had a purpose beyond being a mother. The doorbell rang, shaking me from my thoughts. It was Emily with folders under her arm and a smile on her face. "Auntie, I have news," she said as she entered. "Remember Mr. Williams, the one whose children tried to sell his land while he was hospitalized? Of course, he won the case. The judge declared the sale void and fined the children for fraud. Plus, he implemented protection measures. He asked me to tell you thank you for giving him the courage to fight." I felt warmth in my chest. "That is wonderful." We spent the morning reviewing new cases, planning fundraising events, organizing workshops. At 1 o'clock, I made lunch for both of us. Pot roast, mashed potatoes, fresh biscuits. Emily helped me set the table, and we ate talking about everything and nothing, like real families do. In the afternoon, after Emily left, I sat in the garden with a cup of tea. I watched the hydrangeas Arthur had planted 30 years ago, still blooming, vibrant, and strong. Survivors, like me. My phone vibrated. A message from Sarah. "Auntie, Lily asks if she can stay for a sleepover this Friday. She wants you to teach her how to make those pecan cookies she likes so much." I replied, "Of course. Tell her I'll buy the ingredients." Another message. This one from an unknown number. "Mrs. Miller, I'm Mary Torres. Miss Roberts gave me your contact. My mother-in-law is going through a situation similar to yours. Could we talk?" I replied, "Call me tomorrow at 10. I'd be happy to listen." I put the phone away and watched the sky begin to turn orange with the sunset. I thought of Arthur, of how he would have handled all this, probably with less theater and more direct legal action. But I think he would be proud of me anyway. Proud that I finally learned not to let anyone take away my dignity. I thought of my children, of the love I felt for them when they were born, of the sacrifices I made without hesitation, of the hopes I placed in them. All of that had been real. It wasn't a mistake to love deeply. The mistake was loving without limits, without expecting reciprocity, without demanding respect. Now I understood that a mother's love shouldn't be unconditional to the point of self-destruction. That setting boundaries wasn't stopping loving. It was loving oneself enough not to allow abuse. Did I miss them? Yes. Some nights I still cried for the 8-year-old Mason, who climbed into my bed during storms. For the 12-year-old Jason, who helped me sew at night when orders piled up. For the teenage Sarah who combed my hair and said she wanted to be like me. For the little Tyler who said when he grew up he'd buy me a bigger house. But those children didn't exist anymore. They had grown up and chosen their path, and I had to choose mine. I went into the house when the sun set completely. I made a light dinner. I watched a TV show I liked. I took a long bath with aromatic salts Emily gave me. Simple things that before would have seemed selfish to me, but now I understood were necessary self-care. Before sleeping, I opened the drawer of my nightstand where I kept the photograph of Arthur and the kids, all smiling, all together, in a time when innocence was still possible. I looked at it for a long while. I did it, my love, I whispered to the photo. I defended what was ours. I defended my dignity. I know it hurts. I know it's not the happy ending we imagined, but it's the just ending. And that has to be enough. I put the photo away and turned off the light. Tomorrow would be another day for the foundation, another opportunity to help someone, another opportunity to turn my pain into purpose. Because that was the lesson I had learned with blood and tears. You can't control how they betray you, but you can control how you get up afterward. You can't force people to value you, but you can choose to value yourself. You can't change the past, but you can decide what legacy you leave. And my legacy would no longer be being the mother who gave everything until she was empty. It would be being the woman who, when she hit rock bottom, found the strength to build herself wings. I closed my eyes with one last truth resonating in my mind. My children taught me that family isn't blood, it's loyalty. I lost 4 children, but I gained my dignity. And no one can take that away from me. This is my story. The story of Eleanor Miller, a 67-year-old woman who survived abandonment, betrayal, and attempted dispossession by her own children. A woman who had to choose between blind love and self-love. If you are reading this and going through something similar, I want you to know something. Your worth does not depend on those who abandoned you. You do not depend on the validation of your children, your relatives, or anyone who tries to make you feel like a burden. You are worthy because of who you are, because of what you have survived, because of the dignity you carry with you. And if one day you have to choose between being loved or being respected, choose respect. Because love without respect is manipulation in disguise. It is never too late to reclaim your life. It is never too late to set boundaries. It is never too late to say, enough. Because true wealth isn't in what you possess, but in what you don't allow them to take from you. And you? Have you lived a similar story? Do you know someone who is going through this? Leave me a comment telling me what part of the world you are joining us from today. Like if this story made you reflect. And subscribe to keep listening to real-life stories that teach us about dignity, justice, and self-love. Because together we are stronger, and no one deserves to be treated as invisible in their own life.